Hello, and welcome to episode 43 of the Carry On with Carrie podcast. Today is March 8th. It's International Women's Day, and I am so thrilled to have the guest that I have on. I kind of waited for today because she's such, she's an inspired leader. Her name is Allie Stone. She has been a leader in the hospitality industry for over 15 years, and during that time, she was an integral part of developing over 15 successful businesses and teams. So through that, she's learned so much, and she's sharing and giving her expertise. She's a coach. She's so many things. She's an inspired leader. Allie is also certified as a meditation teacher, a heart math resilience mentor, an ICF certified coach, and she is active, loves yoga, biking, hiking, and time with her 2 dogs. She currently lives in Edmonton, Alberta with her husband of 20 years, Chris. And I mentioned that in here because you're going to want to hear the rest of the story. You don't want to miss it. It's motivational, it's inspiring, and Allie is a true gem. So without further ado, now it's time to talk. Today, I am delighted to welcome Allie Stone, the inspired leader. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a fun conversation. We've already been chatting offline. Mm-hmm. We probably should have been recording.
I always think that. I'm like, why didn't I record that?
Yeah, that's okay though. We're still going to have a great conversation. I'm excited to dive in today with you, Carrie.
Yes, thank you for being here. And you have quite a story, and I've been kind of watching you on social media. I'm watching you grow and all that stuff. And can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Well, like, you've got a lot of things behind you and going on, and so much experience.
Yeah. It's like, where do I start?
Yeah. Where do you start?
And it's funny too, because it's like, people are like, oh my gosh, like, things are like, it's so much happening for you and there's so much success, but that's like the tip of the iceberg, right? And there was so much behind all of that to get to where I am now. And I still think I'm climbing that mountain every day anyway. So, as you mentioned, my name's Allie Stone. I'm the founder of a company called The Inspired Leader. So my work history, we'll start there, is in hospitality. Since 2005, I've been a partner with the Original Joe's restaurant groups in Northern Alberta, which was super cool.
Yes.
It's like 22 years old.
It's hard to believe.
Looking back, I'm like, how did I even function
to
do that? Who gave us that in the first place? But anyway, so my husband and I bought our first sharehold at 22, 23. Mm-hmm. And the Original Joe's franchise exploded in the time that we were with it. So it went from, when we first got in, from 2 locations to, by the time I was done, over I think 98. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was a really wild adventure for us. We spent a lot of time learning what it meant to run a business, how to lead a team first on a small scale, then on a big scale. And it was like, even though it was business, it was such a life learning for me, because it was all about people, really. Mm-hmm. And so when my husband and I bought in, we said, if we're going to do this restaurant thing, which I was like iffy about,
right?
Because we had been working in restaurants. I didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of school. I didn't have money. My parents didn't have money to send me to school. So if I was going to school, I was paying for it. And I was like, right? So you're more cognizant about that. And so I found myself in hospitality. And the thing about hospitality, we had worked for some good companies, and we'd worked for some really bad companies. And so we knew that the industry was tough. Right? Like, people in the industry were often quite jaded to their employers and to the leaders. Oftentimes they weren't treated fairly. Like, you wouldn't get paid overtime.
Yes.
You wouldn't get paid on holidays. All of these things that were normal labor laws, how restaurants were getting around these things. And Chris and I were like, we can't run restaurants and do this stuff. We know what this felt like to be on the receiving end of that. So we're not going to do that.
Right. Make the change, right?
Totally.
And it is I've worked in restaurants, and it's an ingrained, what's the word? Way of thinking. It's been that way for years and years and years, right? So,
and I so get it.
Toxic.
Very toxic. Yeah. And I so get it now, because being an owner all this time, the margins are so low on restaurants, but I don't know if they were back in the 80s. I don't really know. But anyway, the second piece to that too was culture. So we just really wanted to create an environment where people could come to work and enjoy what they were doing. Where like hospitality is actually a really beautiful industry. You get to connect with people every day. You get to have fun. You get to come to work and laugh. Like, why can't that be a great experience for people? And so that was a big part of the journey for me. And as I got into the later stages of my career, I became the director of the organization, and my husband was the director more so of like, um, we were never really good with titles, but more so like operations. And him and I both worked on leadership development, and I was in charge of culture. And so I spent a lot of time identifying leaders, helping people see what they were capable of, helping get them into leadership roles, which was really fun, like really exciting, really inspiring, really cool to see people have that light bulb moment and be like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah,
and I'd be
wow.
like, yes, you can.
I'm good enough for this. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a cool thing to be able to offer people, right?
Absolutely.
So that became my full-time job, which was like incredible. And I think we'll get into the story a little bit too, but eventually I transitioned out of Original Joe's. I opened the Inspired Leader. Really came out of a desire to start to share my learnings from my years in the hospitality industry with other leaders, other organizations, and specifically other women.
Yes, that's where we were talking before we were recording, just how important it is to find a group of women, or just surround yourself with women that are supportive and they trust. There's no competition.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a better era now. Like,
I
think women are more open to creating supportive environments, but there's still a lot of environments out there where women are, I'm going to use my air quotes, nobody can see me, but women are, we're not supporting each other in authentic and genuine ways. And so it's really important for me that the spaces that I create, that is a big piece of it, and that we have each other's backs, understanding that when we lift each other up, we all rise. And I think there's space for all of us.
Oh, for sure. And standing behind that though and the follow-up behind it, right? And that's something that, okay, so if you can explain a little bit more about your story.
Sure.
And what led you into coaching, and the importance of the certification. And you were telling me all about about like your education and all that stuff that goes behind it, right?
So coaching coaching for me kind of came out of a desire to help these up and coming leaders get to a place, not so much that I was telling them what to do, but they were uncovering their own roadblocks. They were breaking through their own limiting beliefs and barriers. And so coaching really was the thing that really unlocked the door for me, that really put the key in for me with that. And I wasn't aware, but I knew in working with these leaders, there was a better way. There was a way to get them there faster. And so it was actually in COVID when all of a sudden we had no real connection, which is a whole nother story. Crazy time in hospitality, every industry. We had no real connection with our people. And so all of a sudden I ended up on 6, 7, 8 Zoom calls a day with people and trying to figure out how to create this connection. And so I decided to go get my ICF certification in coaching. And when I started to understand the power behind asking questions, provocative questions, thought-producing questions, everything changed for me. And then I got really geeked up. I got really excited about it. And started just coaching. So I wasn't really delivering advice anymore. I was just helping people see what was possible for them. And the growth was just exponential. And so it was through those experiences with leaders inside of the organization. They would maybe leave, go work for somebody else, go work for another company, and the company would be like, how do you have all this insight? Like, where is this coming from? Where did you learn all this? And so they would talk about their experience with me at Joe's. And so companies started coming to me. I consulted a little bit on the side just for fun, super quietly. And then I started to be like, oh, other organizations don't have what Joe's has. Like, they don't have somebody like me helping them see what's possible in their business. And so that just continued to evolve for me. And eventually I got to this place where I got really passionate about helping women succeed because, well, I'm a woman. If you can't tell by my voice. And I know what it's like to come up in a predominantly male-driven industry. I know. And I know what that feels like to be one of the only women sitting at the table. I know what it feels like to be nervous to speak up and unsure if my opinion or my voice or my ideas even matter in a very masculine environment. Now, I'm lucky because my husband was one of the partners, and so he was very supportive of me, and my other partner was very supportive too. But it didn't change the fact that it was a very masculine environment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it just became really important to me to help other women see that they can navigate this, that they can start to come to the table with a different level of confidence, have different conversations.
Right. And be soft still. Be authentic to yourself, not having to get hard in a world that maybe wants, like, you feel you have to sometimes, which also changes the everybody, like the whole interaction with everybody, right? The team, that's where the positivity comes through and you start seeing good change.
Yeah. And we were just talking about living out of alignment, right? So like how many women in business or in a corporate setting right now are living out of alignment because they feel like they need to come but they need to come forward with this really masculine type of energy, but it's not natural. It's not our natural state of being, right? And so we it's like a learned behavior, a learned skill, but it drains our energy. We're exhausted, we face burnout, like all of these things. And so I'm not like a big feminist or anything. So I always try to clarify that. I'm not like it's only women. And I actually think women and men can do amazing things together. But I think our conversation needs to change a little bit. And I think it's on us as women to first look inside of ourselves and decide what that conversation can look like, and then approach our allies and our counterparts in ways that we can come together and we can make more impact in the world, that we can create businesses that make the world a better place.
Exactly. And I'm the same as you. I'm not, I believe in women and power in women. But, I have 3 sons. So it would be, I can't, I look at them and I see the sensitive side of men too. And they just present differently. So it's, they're trying to navigate in this world. It's changed a lot, right? Yeah. And I think that we've come to this point in the world where, things were imbalanced for so long, where men were here and women were here. And now we were trying to rise up. And I think it's all starting to kind of align now. How do you feel about that?
I think
starting to.
Yes, starting to.
Still not there.
I keep saying we, especially as women, are living in one of the greatest times to be alive. Like, we are so lucky. Now, I know some people might be listening to me like, there's terrible things happening in the world, and I know. I'm aware.
Yes.
But if you live in like North America, likely you're living in one of the best times to be alive, one of the greatest times to be alive. And so I also think there's a responsibility with that. I think there's a responsibility with that for us as women to start to look at things differently, to start to say, okay, like, what is the impact I can make in the world? How can I start to create this like level of consciousness with men and women in the world so that we're working together again towards something better? So we're coming out of an era, like we count the last maybe 100 years of like production. We saw the first TVs, we saw radio, like all of these things. It was like build, 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 build. But now I think we're getting into an era of let's collaborate. Let's make the world a better place. Let's be more compassionate as leaders. Let's take care of each other.
That's right.
And that really excites me.
Oh, me too. I think that's, again, I get all the chills because it is I feel the same kind of shift right now. And I think it's so important, especially if it doesn't matter how old you are. I'm 50 years old. I say this all the time. If I'm learning that those things are possible, I can teach that to my younger son, they're now in their 20s and my older one's in his 30s, but it's still something that if they see you, that it's still even possible at that age. Yes. That your younger generation that's healing so much past traumas and the way the workplace environment is changing.
Yes.
And we have to evolve with it.
And I think that's beautiful because we used to have to show up and roll up the window or put an armor on. And this is where I really wanted to go with you today, because I think that what you like, just talking about mental health, and this is so important. But now we're starting to see work environments where people can go to work and be themselves. They can show up and say, I'm having a really effing hard day today and I need some support. And there are organizations out there who will honor and help people with that. Now, I don't think there's enough of them.
No.
But it's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah. And so I think that's really important too.
For sure. And with that, though, teaching how to navigate it. Because, you go into a situation and perhaps somebody is having a bad day. As a leader in the company, what is the healthiest way to deal with that? how do you support that person and also support yourself at the same time?
Yeah.
And those are the hard things to navigate.
For sure. And we have to do as leaders. I'm like as leaders because I consider myself a leader.
Yeah.
We have to do the work first.
Right.
We have to lead ourselves first. We have to do that hard inner work and not pretend like it's just like a strategy, because this is people. This is emotional intelligence. This is connections. This is something that is not black and white. It's very gray. And the more we lean into that, the better we'll be as leaders.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you really have to learn. I'm more of a compassionate person, right? I'm softer and all those things. And you think, well, how do I navigate that? How do I show that maybe take me seriously, but I don't want to have that other side of it? And I want people to come to work and be happy.
Yes.
Right.
And there's still a responsibility to get the job done.
Exactly.
So sometimes we get caught up in that too, right?
Yeah.
So it's like balancing all of these pieces while we take care of people and still be productive and we be successful as a business. And so, yeah, it requires a deep level of thinking.
So with your coaching, then you do a lot of speaking, if I can speak.
We'll get that word out.
Yeah. You do speaking engagements, you do personal coaching. I mean, you've kind of run the gamut of stuff to do with anything inspirational. How does that look if you were like, do you go into companies and kind of help inspire them with workshops or just the tools that they need to
I do
start going?
I do. And it's so important. And like I said, I'm really passionate about working with women, and I love that piece of my business, but also I'm really passionate about helping leaders improve their capacity, their capability to work with their team in more compassionate, caring, and kind ways. Also create successful businesses, because I think, there's a lot of, business strategy out there that, you need to understand P&Ls. You got to understand finances. You got to know how to work the bottom line to have a successful business. And then you need to know how to execute and all of these things, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, we need to know how to do those things.
Yeah.
But I actually believe there's something even before that. And that is our connection with people. What kind of relationships are we developing? Because if you're going to have people to show up and do these things with you, you better have a level of trust first with them.
Yes.
You better know how to build relationships. You better connect with them authentically. And as a leader, you better have a vision and some values and like an idea of where you're taking this company, or else you're just going to get them all inspired, and then you're going to start something and they're just going to be left standing in the middle of the street going, what are we doing
exactly
right now?
Yeah,
right?
You're just all floundering around and trying to figure out what you think you know what the end goal is, but what is it really?
Right.
Yes.
And so how many, I hate the word employee, so I use the word team member, but just preface why I say that, because I think people are part of a team, not a like
I do
employee too. Insinuates a number to me.
Yeah, like you said, the titles sometimes it's like you're just a team working together for the same end goal.
Totally. I like to think of team members as partners, like they're your partners in your business, right? But like, how many team members, feel disgruntled on the daily because they're like, I don't even know what I'm doing, or I don't understand this initiative, or I don't understand why this message is coming down. Leaders miss the mark on this often in organizations. And so I go in and teach them a higher level of emotional intelligence. I help them connect with their people on an energetic level so that when these changes come in, when you need to implement these things, they understand how to do that in a way that their people want to come on that journey with them.
Right. And that's huge, right? And I mean, we've all had, I know, different working environments that I've been in. So this is the thing with the motivational speaking and the programs that come up. Afterwards, everybody's super pumped. Everybody's like, I'm on board. We've got this. But then somehow it all starts because your roots are still back there and it takes time to change.
Yes.
So you start floundering again.
Yeah.
Now, do you offer, and what is it that you would suggest to keep that motivation, or at least to, what's the word, upgrade it, or I don't know,
take the next step. So I say this all the time. I was doing a workshop this week and I was like, Kate, I don't want you to hire me back to come in and do this culture workshop. So this is going to be super integrative today.
Okay.
And so I don't just, even in a keynote, I don't just talk to people. Everything for me is integration. So what I believe is that when we create a connection, not just intellectual connection, an emotional connection to what we're talking about, it anchors. Like, it anchors differently, and we move away from that situation with a greater understanding of what we were learning, but also what I think is more important is what you learned that's authentic to you. Because every leader is going to show up differently. And I always say that too. I'm like, don't show up the way I showed up. Like, I'm sharing some of my experiences with you. And if that resonates with you, great, go ahead, copy it. I have no problems with that. But if it's not authentic to you, you need to do the work to figure out what's authentic to you. And so anyway, so in that workshop environment, there's always at the end, there's always like, what's the big takeaway? And what's the commitment to yourself? And then I turn to the leaders of the organization and I say, you just had 20 people in this room make a commitment. The responsibility is now on you. Right. As the leader.
To follow through with it.
Yes. Exactly. So as leaders, I think we need to, there's so much of this, we'll just bring somebody in, we'll bring Allie in and she'll do this workshop.
And it'll all be fixed.
Yeah. And I'm like,
no, it's a continuous learning experience, I think. And different characters show up all the time. So you're navigating that as well. Your social, like you said, the social aspects. Somebody might throw you for a loop. Like somebody you have, oh shit, now this is happening, right? Excuse my language.
It's all good.
But yeah.
It's so interesting that you brought that up because I actually had that happen in my workshop this week. And it was a gentleman who was in the audience and we were talking about navigating change and we were talking about our emotional response to change and how sometimes we have some resistance to that.
Yeah.
And so I put them in groups to talk about it and he immediately walked up to me with his arms crossed and he was like, well, I just don't understand why we didn't outline change. And I said, do you not understand what change is? And he was like, well, and anyway, so, hopefully he'll never listen to this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not going to put any names, but yeah. And I was just like, okay, well, like share with me your thought pattern because I want to understand what's frustrating you right now. And I think reflecting, I was talking to my husband about it last night, but I think reflecting on it, he was upset because I put him out of his comfort zone.
Right.
Right. And so I had to really kind of soften that for him to get him back into the group and to get him to talk about it and to get into a place where he was open. So oftentimes, we'll do these trainings. Yeah. Not often, but sometimes we'll do these trainings and you might have an emotional resistance to the training or to the learning. And so as leaders, I think there's also a really important piece to understanding our emotional response and learning how to work through that. So I did talk to him about it after and I was like you actually, I said to him, you actually like exemplified what I was talking about because you resisted what we were doing and it's totally okay. And I want you to know that it'll happen. The question is, what are we going to do with it as leaders? And he was kind of like, oh.
Yeah, that's a learning experience for you too. Like all these things that come up as a speaker. Have you ever been put completely on the spot where you're like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's been a few times for sure. And sometimes I'm like, did I even answer that question? No, but I might be doing that to you today, so I don't know.
Yeah, but. And I actually was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, what did I just say? Sometimes, I'm going to go back and be like, oh, Carrie.
I just try to stay energetically though, like in any circumstance, whether it's a workshop, conversation with you, whether I'm speaking, like I'll just stay energetically with what's happening in the room or with the person that I'm with and wherever that goes. And so I try to be okay with that. I always say like leadership and what we're doing for our careers is so much more about practice than perfection.
Right.
And if we can lean into that, then you don't get frustrated if you're like, say something stupid or,
and honestly, how many people remember it? Like,
no.
How many conversations do you have in a day? And do you remember each thing that each person said or that you said?
For sure. Right? Yeah.
So I think the same thing goes for if you hit the key notes as a speaker, no pun intended. Sorry, I'm bad for those jokes. People really gravitate though towards what they need to hear as well. Yes. Do you find that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the observation so do you often have the leader in the same workshop or do you have you combine the whole team together?
Oh yeah, I recommend they're always together. I think when the leader doesn't sit in, it's a huge mistake.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because they're learning that they can just see the responses from the team and all those things.
I think also when they show their team members that they're willing to learn and grow with them, we've now created a partnership.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And that's the partnership. All right. Well, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Allie's amazing. I hope you love her just as much as I do. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to give another shout out to the event happening tomorrow, March 9th. Allie is going to be one of the speakers there. It's going to be a super awesome event. I'm really excited. I'm going to be going with my sister. And this is the event in Edmonton. So Saturday, March 9th, No Girl Left Behind. It is a nonprofit organization offering one-of-a-kind events designed to help women and girls grow and thrive. They are excited to bring No Girl Left Behind events to the Grand Prairie, Edmonton, and Toronto region in 2024. Their team has developed an event that will provide you with a lifelong tools to help you change your mindset, feel happier, healthier, and more confident. Their goal is to have you leave feeling empowered, and I know they will, because Kiki Rosima, who I had on the show way back, just a couple months ago now, probably, she's amazing. She's such a light, and there's going to be women and girls, and we're going to learn tons of stuff and empower each other. It's pretty awesome stuff. You can go to her website at nogirlleftbehindevent.com. So just check it out and keep it in the back of your mind for next year too, because I know there's exciting things coming then as well. All right, so now we're going to talk some more. So having these workshops, having things set up for your company, these are all wonderful things and it's exciting and all that. But what is some of the other things that you really specialize in, and especially with empowering women? Because I would like to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So a couple of the things that have become really important to me along the way is best way to articulate this today, our ability to care for ourselves. So I know this personally.
Yes.
I know what it's like to, to have a complete breakdown
Yes.
in your career and to completely lose track. Mm-hmm. And so really, like for me, when I'm working with women, it's super important that, yes, I help them find this, this flow, this ease with their team and create success in their business. But it's also super important to me that I help them in their lives.
Yes.
That I help them.
I didn't know if it was recording. I wasn't doing anything there for a second. Okay.
Like Major Tom? Anyway. I can sing for you.
Yeah, could you please?
No, but yeah, it's super important. So basically, there's a lot to this. I'm like, where do I want to go? Mm-hmm. So a couple certifications I have. I'm a certified meditation teacher. I'm a certified heart math personal resilience mentor. I've done about 120 hours of study in mindfulness-based stress reduction and polyvagal theory.
Oh, wow.
And I really wanted to start to understand what it took to be in control of our nervous system. Well, do you want me to share the story?
Yes, I absolutely do. Yeah, I think that's really important.
So I know we talked about it before, and a lot of people know this story. But, I mentioned Original Joe's. My husband and I were partners in it. We ran the organization together for 14 years.
Yeah.
In 2018, we went to Tokyo so he could run the marathon there. He's a competitive marathon runner. And while we were there, he contracted a virus that got into his spinal cord and into his brainstem, caused brain swelling, and almost killed him. And the most, can I swear? Scariest
absolutely.
moment of my life.
I can't imagine, yeah.
And then turned into the scariest years of my life. Mm-hmm. And so, by the time we got Chris, my husband's name was Chris, by the time we got him to a hospital in Japan, he was conscious. So when he first kind of went into the state, he was unconscious in the middle of the night, got him to a hospital. He was conscious, which is great. But neurologically, something had changed. He had no idea where we were. He didn't know we were in Japan. He didn't know we were in a hospital. He had no idea if he had ran a marathon the day before, all of these things. Yeah. So they run all of these tests on him in Japan, and they can't find anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah. They're like, he's having an aneurysm, all of these things. And I'm like, okay. And nothing comes out of it.
Right.
And so they say to me, you need to get him home. We don't know what's going on, but it's better if you get somewhere where you can speak the language and, all of these things. And so we hop on a plane out of Tokyo in 3 hours, literally running out of an airport or out of the hospital. And by the time we get home, he is worse. After this flight, he's so confused. He has no idea. He just has no idea what's going on. But he's aware that he has no idea what's going on. So he's getting super paranoid. And so I'm just obviously, this is petrifying. We go to the U of A hospital in Edmonton, to the emergency room. Same thing. Nothing's wrong with him. They can't find anything in any tests. So they tell me he's not in life-threatening danger, so they won't admit him. and they send us home 3 days in a row.
Unreal.
I know. It's so frustrating. Anyway, I could go on about that for hours.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole nother side of it, right?
Like, come on, Canada. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I have things to say about our healthcare system.
Yes.
But anyway, so finally on the third day, I go back and I say, I'm not leaving. And I can see like the lady at the triage. She's been there every day. She's like rolling her eyes at me and she's like, here she comes again. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
And you're starting to feel like guilty, right?
Like, why am I here? I shouldn't be here.
People
I'm wasting
make you
your
feel
time.
like you're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And Chris is, again, getting sicker and sicker. So I say, I'm not leaving until I see a neurologist. You need to get a neurologist down here. I know you will have one on call and somebody needs to come look at him. Something neurologically is wrong with him. Just because you can't find something in his blood or in a scan.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see a neurologist and he says to us, Chris has encephalopathy. And we're like, okay. Apparently you get it from mosquitoes and whatever in Japan. It's like a thing. And we're like, okay. And we're like kind of sitting there looking at him. He's like, he'll be better in 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
No tests, no medication, no nothing.
Just that. That's it.
Sends us home.
With this big word.
Yes.
This is what you have.
And we're like Googling and trying to figure it out.
So then you go Dr. Google and you get even more
petrified.
Yes.
Yeah. And so 4 to 6 weeks passes. He doesn't get better. He only gets worse and worse and worse. And so we're back and we're back and we're back. And he keeps saying he's just going to get better. Give it time. And so I'm living in this high fight or flight state. Mm-hmm. From the moment this happens in Japan, my nervous system never re-regulates. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I can't.
How can you?
It's impossible.
Life has changed overnight.
Yeah. And so it starts to get to a point where Chris, I don't even think Chris and I are talking about this at this point, but it starts to get to a point where I'm like, I have to go back to work. Mm-hmm. It's been like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Like we're both not there. Like this is crazy right now. Yeah. And so, it was really incredible, actually, when we first came back from Japan. You know, I talked about how important it was for us to build that culture at Original Joe's. And we had spent that 14 years taking care of those like 500 people in that organization. And when we came home and nobody knew what was going on with Chris, they took care of us. And it was really beautiful. Wow. So like I'd walk past my front door and there would maybe be like a fresh baked loaf of bread with a note on it or a pie or wine or flowers. And then we started getting cards and like, people were like, we know you, we can't really come in, but we just want to show you our support. Mm-hmm. And then one day I opened our front door to find 3 months of freezer meals packed.
Wow.
And that was like, Carrie, that was like so big for me at that time because like, I didn't even know how to make food.
Well, because you don't have the capacity to, you're focused on healing and healing him. You're, like you said, fight or flight.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It was really, I remember I just stood there and cried.
Yeah. And those are the simple things though that is like the biggest gift that you can, not one of the biggest, but you know what I mean? It's what those things that just,
yeah. And you knew they were just sitting on the sidelines going, oh my God, like we don't know how to help right now. Right. And so I think in and amongst all of that, I started to really feel like I need to get back and figure out how to take care of these people. And so I went back to work, obviously without Chris, and Chris was still pretty much in the acute phase of his illness at that time. Mm-hmm. And so his parents needed to watch him during the day while I went to work. And it was a whole thing, right?
Yeah. And that's hard too, adjusting to all those changes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I lasted like 2 weeks.
Okay. Got it.
And I just had a complete breakdown. So I was driving into work one day to run the senior level leadership team meeting, mm-hmm. Which we did every week. And I pulled up to the office and I went to put my hand on the door to get out of the car. And I just like froze. And I was like, what is this? Like I've never really experienced anything like that before. Yeah. And then I just kind of sat there and I took a little breath and then I just started crying and like heaving ugly snot.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And my heart's racing and just like I'm just having this huge emotional release. And I'm like, I can't go in there.
Right.
It's not a thing.
This is not going to happen right now.
No.
Yeah.
So I picked up the phone and it was getting really close to the meeting. So I picked up the phone and I called inside and one of my peers picked up the phone and he came out and I was like, hey, he's like, are you like sitting out front? I was like, yeah, can you just like come out and talk to me? So he came out and he was, I will always remember this. And I will always like be so grateful for this of him. He like opened my car door. I remember he just kind of like knelt down and he kind of put his hand on my leg and he just kind of let me cry. And he was like, I get it. Like, I can't even imagine what you guys are going through right now. And then I finally was like able to catch my breath. And I was just like, I just don't think I can do this. And he said, that's okay. And I was like,
Wow.
is it okay? And that was like the first moment where I was like, it might be okay that I'm not okay right now. Like, to me, in my mind, it wasn't an option
No,
to not be okay.
that's right.
I had to take care of Chris. I had to take care of the organization. I had to figure out how to run our lives. We lost an entire income. I wasn't even sure if we're selling houses and cars at this point. I was like, I don't even know what's happening in our
Right.
lives. I am the last man standing.
Mm-hmm.
So to not be okay in this moment is not an option.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a choice at all.
And so it wasn't a choice until my emotional state body said
Your body made
it has
you.
to be a choice.
Yeah, it told you this is okay. You won't listen. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't work that day. He took over the meeting for me. I left. I started to head home and recognized that heading home wasn't where I could go because, I had to take care of Chris when I went home. So I called my sister, obviously heaving, ugly, crying, driving down the street. And I said, I'm just going to your house. She's like, yeah. We have a good relationship like that. We just walk into each other's houses. And I remember I went and I laid on her couch and I fell asleep. It was the first time I slept even.
Right.
And I was and so I woke up and I was snot, makeup,
Yeah.
I love how I described this.
I love it though. It's so true though.
It was so ugly. My hair was everywhere.
It's not all Instagram and smiles.
No.
So.
And I at this point in my career, I would post some of those pictures because I'm super real. If I had
me
them,
too.
Yeah. I'm whatever. But anyway, so I share that story because we've all been ugly, snot, heaving, crying, feeling holy crap, my head's gonna explode. And I woke up and I remember I sat on the edge of the couch and I was like, holy shit, how am I going to do this? How am I, what the hell is going on in my life? What has happened?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting there and I remember taking a little breath and closing my eyes and feeling a little bit better in that moment and starting to get just a tiny bit of clarity. And the clarity that came through was, if you don't figure out how to take care of yourself, number one, you're not going to make it. Number two, you're not going to be able to take care of Chris and figure this out and figure out what his healing journey is. And number three, you're not going to be able to run this organization.
Right.
And it starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the day that everything started to change for me. And so I started with the journey of being a meditation teacher.
Great.
Because I was like, I just need to figure this out. And I know when I take a breath and slow down and close my eyes, I feel better. And so I did that process. It was very spiritual. So it was really beautiful. But I was like, okay, but how does this work? Because my logical brain was still in fight or flight and I needed to understand. And so that's where heart math came in.
Okay.
And so heart math is this process that was created by a bunch of scientists where I always say it's kind of like this process of creating harmony between our heart and our brain. In any given day, the messages that are sent to our body, only 20% of the messages are sent by our brain. The other 80% are sent by our heart.
Wow.
Which is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
But we're not listening to that. No. I sure as shit wasn't.
So would you say that's your intuition, your gut kind of thing? Is that what
your deeper knowing? It's your wisdom. It's your I know this. Mm-hmm. How do I know this? It's your heart talking.
Right. And oftentimes, if you go into a situation where you, like you said, how am I doing this right now? What did I even say? Well, it's your heart probably leading you there. Your subconscious, you do know it deep down.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because when we start to learn to live more there, we're more aligned, we're happier, we have more peace, we have more fulfillment, we feel like we have meaning in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so it just completely transformed my life, getting to work with the heart math team. And so eventually I became a heart math resilience mentor.
Okay.
I'm certified to work with people with these skills. But what I've really done is I've kind of taken all of these pieces that I've learned and turned it into Allie's mishmash.
Yeah, and that's
of heart healing. And so I do a lot of this in my workshops with people these days. But honestly, Carrie, though, at the start, I had no intention of sharing it. I was just I need to heal myself. Because if I don't figure out how to heal myself, I'm ground zero right now.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, it's the same thing. I say it so many episodes. You have to put the mask on yourself first and take that air before you can give it to anybody else.
I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately. And people are like, oh, don't you put on your kid first? I'm like, if you can't breathe by the time you get on your kid, you're dead, man.
Yeah, because your instinct says, but no, but when it really comes down to it, if you're not breathing, you can't. Right. Your instinct really will go to yourself, I think, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been in that situation, so.
No, thank God.
Not that I have a kid beside me either, but you never know.
Yeah.
But so and so it feels counterintuitive is what I want to say about
it. Does. Yes, it does. Because it goes against what we've always, especially as women, we're almost taught that you are the caregiver. Well, we are taught that.
Yeah.
You know?
And that we need to be.
Yeah. And I'll do this for you. We create sometimes our own misery because we allow it. But it's just something that's been ingrained in us.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. Yeah.
So how do you, that's part of this too, is, so you've got quite a year coming up for you. Like, you're a busy woman.
Yeah.
So you've gone from that. Okay. So you started it with the heart math. Mm-hmm. And then how did you evolve into what you're doing right now, which is quite magical?
So what I think happened was, after, I'm going to call it the giant breakdown of 2018. What happened after my unveiling was that my values changed.
Right.
And the way I saw the world changed. Mm-hmm. And the way I wanted to show up in the world changed. And that broke the alignment for me with Original Joe's, which was super sad for me because I loved it. Yeah. But I was like, there's something more. Mm-hmm. There's something different for me out there. It's time for the next chapter. And so I started moving towards that. And things serendipitously just started happening. So I met a local author and speaker. His name's David Urban. Amazing guy. He wrote a book called The Other Everest, if anybody's ever interested in reading it. And when I read his book, it changed my life. And then I reached out to him and I was like, hey, you need to come speak with our team at Original Joe's. And then him and I started talking. He's like, I don't need to speak with my team. You need to start working with me.
Right.
And so he mentored me for 2 years. He took me on incredible adventures. We had amazing opportunities to speak together in front of really big audiences. And he helped me like hone my craft. And he was the first person to believe in me that I had something to offer outside of Original Joe's. Now, we didn't end up, we talked about starting a business together, but we didn't, mostly because my mission wanted to be around women.
Yes.
He does a lot of the leadership development stuff too.
Okay.
But yeah, so anyway, so grateful for that experience. But then these serendipitous things just started happening. And then, people started asking me to speak. I got a keynote, I got these things. And so clients just started coming after that. And, it took me a while to get really clear about what I wanted to do. And I'm still not 100% clear on what it all looks like, because I feel like it's continually evolving, but I'm trying to be really open to that process.
Yes. And you're in that super growth mode right now.
Totally.
Right? Where you kind of went through that, and then now you're just like, the blooms are coming out. And
yeah. I always will go back to the airplane, but I keep likening it to the airplane on the runway. So you start a business, you're like loading the airplane and everybody's getting in, and it's so futile.
Yes.
You're like, when is everybody going to get in their seats?
You're hot. You're like,
like, oh my God, turn on the air conditioning, right? And so it's painful starting a business. Yeah. And then the plane backs out and you're like, oh, some things are happening. You start to get some clients. Then the plane hits the runway and you're like, oh, okay. I can see that this isn't going to fail. And that's a really cool moment in business.
Yes.
And what I say about the inspired leader now is like, this plane is taking off down the runway. The front wheels are off. The back wheels are bouncing off. They're still touching down sometimes, but it's ready to just like launch, which is cool, but freaking scary.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I don't know how to handle it all.
Yeah. What's the next step? How do I support myself through that change?
Yeah. And that next level of growth.
Yeah.
Because what got the business started and the way I thought about it and the way I engaged is not what's going to take it to the next level.
Right.
So that's
a team.
Scary thought.
Yeah, now you have to look at the team that you're going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I need a team.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of, and now you're in that, and that's kind of exciting, like to be into that side of it again.
Yeah.
Because you had it for so long with that Original Joe's.
And that was the saddest part when I left. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not gonna have a team and I don't want to work alone. And I said that. I was like, I don't want to work alone. Mm-hmm. So it's super cool that it's turning around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, it speaks volumes as to your character, your heart in it.
Yeah.
And that's how I went right back to heart.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. And it seems like your passion for it. It does. You can't lead other people unless you, like you said, we said this at the beginning, unless you have the passion behind it.
Yeah.
And you definitely do. I can see it. It's like contagious.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've probably been talking for way too long. So.
Well, no, it's good. Okay, you are heading to an event. Like, what is your next event right now that you're kind of? I know No Girl Left Behind.
Oh yeah, I
is
got No
coming
Girl
up.
Left Behind in March.
Mhm.
I'm going to be the keynote at the Four Wing Family Resource Military in Cold Lake at the end of March as
Oh.
well. Going to next Friday, February 16th, I'm doing just a smaller kind of like luncheon thing with Bad Queens in Spruce Grove. So it's like every week. There's
Yeah,
some,
you're
I feel like
busy.
I need to get these on my website so that people can like come if they want these open events and things.
Oh,
So,
for sure. Yeah.
see, these are the strategies I need a team for.
Yes, and you do. You need those people behind you to like, yep, we got this. And then the all the ideas that come when you're talking in that team.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah.
These sparks of
Yeah.
So I ask all of my guests this: what is the last best thing that you do every night before you go to bed?
I do a few. I'm like, which one do I want to share with you?
Yeah.
I think it is. So I have two dogs. I have a 100-pound blue tick and a 10-pound beagle.
Oh wow!
If you follow me on Instagram,
Yeah,
they're there a lot in my stories.
Yes.
Anyway, so before bed we have like this whole routine where like we go into our bedroom and the little one sits on the edge of our bed and the big blue tick sits on the floor and they sit like exactly the same and stare at us while we brush our teeth.
Yeah.
And then they have to like get their treats. And then once they get their treats, they all roll up and curl up into their bed. And the little one gets to sleep with us, but the big one has to sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
So it's been a thing. But
you
anyway,
do need to sleep too.
It's the little one curls up beside me and she looks up with her big eyes. And it's always like the last thing I see before I go to bed. And anyway, I just love that. So
and that's so pure sweet. Love.
Oh yeah.
That you're seeing right before you go to
or
sleep.
Or treat love, but
yeah,
I'll take
that
it
one
as
or
love.
the other. Yes. Or scratch my ear love. Yeah.
But she's got these eyes and I just always go to bed and I'm like,
yeah, that's my routine too. I have two as well, but they're both small, so they both sleep in my bed.
Okay.
It's like some nights the one's really good. She sleeps at the end of the bed. The Claire, she likes to cuddle right up.
Yeah,
it's
and
pretty
it's like,
amazing.
how do they take up an entire bed?
They just do.
Yeah.
And I wake up like sideways.
Right? Yes.
And that's okay.
Like you literally are 10 pounds.
Yes.
How is this a thing?
Yeah, exactly. I love that answer. I've had a few people answer that. And we underestimate the power of our animals. That's another piece to mental health that I always find. It really does make a difference no matter what. You get home and you have that other person. Yeah. That's how much I love my dogs.
I know. Me too, don't
I talk to them all the time.
Oh yeah, full-blown conversations. Yes. And they're like looking at you like, what are you doing? You
practice your speech on them?
For sure.
Do you do that? Like, do you actually practice before you do a speech?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where most people fall down. Mm-hmm. So I do coach people on speaking now. Okay. People have been coming to me. And it's like the Michael Jordan. It's like the Gretzky. You have to, even though it feels weird as hell, you have to stand at a wall, flip through your slides and talk through it. Right. Because that's how you create the impact.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, even for the podcast, I probably look crazy, but the great thing about driving and talking to yourself now is that nobody knows.
I do that all the time, Carrie.
Yes.
I'll be like, hey, let's practice the opener. And I'm like, all animated.
Yes. It's like, okay, oh, that sounded great. I sure hope it does when I get on the podcast. And or before a meeting or, I find that really practical for me. It works. So if you could leave the listeners with anything like hopeful with, especially surrounding mental health and the wellness and all that good stuff, is there anything that you would really want to highlight?
I think the thing that just comes to mind for me is remembering that you matter. I didn't think that I mattered when all of that happened with my husband. And I didn't think that it was okay for me not to be okay. And it sounds a little cliche, and I'm sure people have heard people say it, but like if you're listening to this and you're in a tough place right now, I want you to know that you matter. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not gonna come back the way you want to. Right. And so even though it feels counterintuitive, even though it feels like selfish or whatever's going through your head, you need to work through that. Yeah. And give yourself the time and space to heal, to take care of yourself, to create an experience of your life that supports you and you first.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah. This has been such a great conversation. I knew it would be. I was so excited to talk to you.
It was really good.
And
I could talk to you for 4 hours. So.
I could too. I just could keep going. I'll have to do it again with you.
Yeah.
For sure. So can you let everybody know where to find you and how to get on board with all of this exciting stuff that's going on?
Yeah,
How can they book you?
Yeah. So I think that the best way is on Instagram. I'm super active there, so I'm always like chatting with people in DMs. So I love that. It feels like real connection. So
Yes.
you can find me on Instagram at @AllieStone__. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit too, and
Okay.
pretty active in conversations there. Then I have a website, www.theinspiredleader.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is you. It's been a great, thank you for spending your Saturday with me, your Saturday
you.
morning. So,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you, Allie. Well, that was another amazing episode. Allie is so great. I just love her, and it's exciting times for women right now, and it's a good time. It's a shift in a positive feminism, I guess, because we want to empower both men and women so that this can be just that's what equality is. And I hope this episode really helped everybody get a good understanding and just a different perspective on how to look at leadership as a woman, and it's empowering. So take it all in, and if you want to check her out, please check her out on all her social medias. You can also check me out on Instagram at @carryonwithcarrie_podcast and on Facebook at @carryonwithcarrie podcast. I am available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So again, thanks so much for your support and for listening. Give me a share and some follows and all that stuff if you feel inclined. And let's just try to help one person at a time.